Oh man. So sometimes when you travel, there's like cultural barrier. I mean, language barriers, but there's also like within the language there are nuances and differences, right? Well, nuances, deep. Thank you. It's great. Anyway, my wife and I were in Ecuador for 5 weeks, and this was a day that she was doing some Spanish classes for one of the girls at Pan de Vida. And so, she came in for her lesson. And so she's talking to her or whatever. And I'm helping with Mateo, finishing getting him ready and dressed, changing his diaper, all that dad duty stuff. And so I carry him out of the room. And I was like, oh, hey. And I was going to say, oh, hi, Grace. But then I noticed that in that moment, there was like tears rolling down her face. And I was like, oh no, like something happened, and it was like she was really, really, really broken, like really broken. And so Amanda's sitting there talking to her, and I was just like, oh no, like something happened. So I like slowly, kind of walk over, trying to listen into what's going on. And she's like, yeah, and so Amanda looks at me and says, her father died. I was like, wow, like that's tough, man. And she's crying at the level of my father died, right? And so, anyhow, so she's telling Amanda everything, and Amanda's like, we're praying for her. We start praying for her, like, Lord, touch her life. Like, God, please, like, her father just died, like all these things. Well, we get to the end of it. I'm texting people, guys, like, remember so-and-so? Her father just died. And we just prayed for them. And like, we're going into ministry moment. We're like praying to the Lord, like, God bless her life, help her, like all the things that you could say if someone died. And so we get to the end of the prayer. I've already texted a bunch of people. People are praying, they're replying. We're praying comfort, we pray comfort and peace over her life. This was a really somber moment. And at the end of that, Grace looks up to us and says, she says, oh, it was my cat's father. Oh, she said, thank you, my cat is really sad. Now, the part that was like weird, because I was trying to figure it out, is that she told us how her father died, right? Again, we still think it's her father. No, it's not. But he said that there's like a plank that fell on her father and killed her father. And I was like, what kind of plank is this?
Did she say that he landed on all four of his legs?
No. I was like, what kind of, like, the house fell on him? Like, I'm thinking through all these things. And so then when she told us that, that it was her father's cat, she said, thank you, it was my cat. We were both like, I had to step away because I was like, Lord, I just asked like 30 people to pray so that, because her father just died. And so sometimes, things just get lost in translation. Yeah, fun stuff.
That makes me question, like, every time we've had like a serious prayer moment now, and we're praying for this person because and I'm like, maybe was it like it was nothing at all, and we're like going for it. Question number 2, anybody on the panel, misconceptions that you had or that people often have going into the missions field, whether that's trips or missions in general. What are some misconceptions that you have seen people have?
I think just especially in general, I think there's this conception that people think that they're going to this extremely impoverished area and they're gonna go and heal everyone and bless everyone, and the mission trip is for those people that they're going to be with. When in actuality, that's usually not the case. And most of the time, I would say the trip is for the person that's going and for what God can do with them and through them and, to them. A lot of times I think God takes us on mission trips to separate us from, as Kyle was talking about, our comfort earlier. Sometimes it's literally just God sending you to get you away and alone in a place where he can use you in different ways and speak to you in different ways. And So I think that usually is a bit shocking to some people.
Yeah, I would say probably one of the misconceptions would be if you're going on a Far-Flung trip and you think everything's going to be perfectly planned the way it is on paper. If you're that person that wants it exactly perfect, it may not be that way, but I tell Kyle this all the time. That is what I love about Far-Flung trips, is it's spontaneous and we don't know what's going on, and I love that. And there are times we do know what's going on, but I love when it goes off the schedule a little bit. So if you're kind of cut and dry to the schedule, you know, I think some people maybe come in with that as well. And there's probably some who just, I don't know, they think that it's gonna be just all comfortable and the whole thing, and it's not always that way. So, which is
we had
awesome.
someone, I've told the story before, and he ended up being on the Zoom call. He's heard me tell the story. There's someone that signed up for a trip to Peru, and we were like advising him like what he needed to pack, and he wasn't listening. And hey, you really need this? I'll be fine. And then eventually he's like, look, like what's the big deal? Peru is a American island. And we were like, he thinks we're going to Puerto Rico. And yes, so you never know. You never know. Some of these, actually, you know, some people sign up for countries, and bless them, like, for having that much faith. Some don't even know what continent we're going to. They're like, going to Mozambique. All right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So yeah, you know, just to say yes and not know where it is on the world. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I think a misconception we talk about a lot for people is that missions is something they can't afford. Like, it's too expensive for me to travel. I can't afford this. If once I have more money, if I had a better job, and people don't realize how many in your circle would give if they found out you wanted to go. Because there's a lot of people who don't want to go, but they'll give. Are you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, kind of tagging along with that, is sometimes missions, and this happens a lot with, I think, any ministry role, it's like you feel like there has to be a certain level of qualification, right? And it's like you won't go because you don't feel qualified. And, you know, I would say, and I think a lot of us would say that, like, the only qualification you need is that you've given your life to Christ and you want others to experience the same thing, right? It's like what other qualification is there, right? Just like read scripture. Like, we've been at 17,000 feet. We're praying for people, tired. Honestly, probably just saying, like, in our minds, we're like, we're up here at 17,000 feet. We're tired. We just want to go back to the hotel, eat a warm meal. We're freezing cold. We're tired. Been there for 9 hours. And then in the middle of that time frame, you know, people are getting healed and, saved and set free and all that stuff. And it's like, we didn't even know until somebody finally said, well, because we asked them, it's like, well, how did you guys hear that we were here? And they were like, oh yeah, there's just people going around town saying, you know, there's these men in the town square, you know, praying for people and they're getting healed. Gary and I, I translated it to Gary, and he was like, what? You know, and I'm not saying that we were careless or that we were, you know, didn't want to be there. We love the fact that we were there, but it's just like there's a reality. Sometimes it's cold, it's high, you know, 50% oxygen. And so sometimes I feel like there's that misconception that it has to be a certain thing or that you have to be qualified in a certain way, right? And
to add to that, those moments that you see that are like packaged in a film, these big giant moments that we keep looking back on, don't feel like those moments leading up to. They never feel like this is this big giant. It's usually like, I think we've made a giant mistake. This is there's no backtrack. There's no like, I'm not talking to myself in the interview. It was like, and at that moment, you know, God was doing this. It's just like, I hope we've made the right decisions. It's usually terrifying. And then in the middle of it, you're like, okay, God's doing something, okay. And then maybe about 3/4 of the way through, you're like, oh, we're in one of those moments. We're one of those things where it's all coming together. But it doesn't feel like it until you're almost through it.
I'll quickly just want to say too, I think there can be this misconception of, well, God's got to call me there before I can go. Like, I have to have this vision or this dream, and God will do that. But I've always had the heart with Far-Flung. If Kyle asked me to go, I don't think twice about it. I say yes. I've never it's bad. This may sound really bad, but I never prayed about going to a Far-Flung trip. Is that bad? Like I just said.
We didn't pray about you going either.
Okay, I know you didn't worry about it. Yeah, I know you didn't. But wow, thanks, Brian.
We just wanted you to go. We didn't have to pray about it. We just our heart is with you.
Yeah, that was me though. I was just like, man, I don't care. You know, I want to go and wherever. I mean, we're spreading the gospel. So for me, it was just a yes. So maybe that can be a little misconception, but God does speak to people too. So I don't want to.
I'm going to hit you guys with a couple questions. Best and worst. Okay. Best case scenario, worst case scenario. You don't have to be specific on which country because we don't want anyone not to sign up to go. You just have to discover that. But like, or like best situation, worst situation, highs, lows. Okay, bathroom situations. What have been some of the best and worst? Okay, and I'll say a best because I don't know if there's that many best situations. But one of the places we go, they take us to a restaurant, and when you walk into the guy's restroom, it's like this, like indoor, outdoor jungle, like place, and it's really cool. And so, but you're also a little bit afraid because you know when you go to the bathroom, it's kind of vulnerable, you know, like it's like a vulnerable moment. You're like, how far into the jungle am I? Can wild animals? Can they get me in here? So bathroom stories, shower stories. We've heard Duncan sharing about his traumatic childhood.
I'll just give enough details to get a snicker. It's a pretty vulnerable story that we don't need to go into. But let's just say on the way to Mozambique with Clark and John Bellion in Paris at the Eiffel Tower, everybody, when you talk about, I went to the Eiffel Tower, and it's just this, I'm not going to tell the story, but it was my worst. And I could not find a bathroom. And you would think of all the places we go, we have these awful, stories of going to the bathroom, and mine is at the Eiffel Tower. Oh, and also, yeah, that's true. We got food poisoning in the Amazon, me and Gary was convinced it was in the water, so he kept giving us iodine tablets, but like 4 times as many as you're supposed to have. He's like, well, this will kill it all. And I think he was giving us iodine poisoning. So the more water I drank, the sicker I got. So, yeah.
I'm going to go the opposite way now that Kyle has successfully scared everyone from going on trips. If you're looking for a very normal bathroom situation, I will say Mozambique and Ecuador both have very normal, what you would look for in an American toilet situation bathroom. So ladies, don't let that scare you. Those 2 locations at least have very normal bathroom situations.
Yeah. I was just gonna say a shower on the Amazon. We had like one shower. We had like 55 people on there.
No, we're not doing that story either.
We're not. Let me just share one story though. I won't say who it is, but we had whoever went to the Amazon. Y'all know what I'm talking about. There was like 2 showers, maybe 1 bathroom. I can't really remember, but the showers. Somebody had told me that. Huh? Don't do it. Okay. All right. I won't share that story.
Okay, so
I did it too. So.
If you haven't been to Thailand, when you go, you're going to encounter what's referred to as the squatty potty. It's pretty self-explanatory. I had a traveler recently that was walked into the bathroom not expecting the squatty potty, expecting an American potty, and they were just really tore up about it. And they also didn't see toilet paper, so they come to me asking for toilet paper. And I said, just a moment, and we will get you some. Just give me a moment. And then, you know how sometimes we play charades to try to explain something to someone? Well, this person trying to play charades to explain to someone that I need toilet paper just reached and grabbed something out of someone's hand and just snatched it up and said, I need some toilet paper, right? Oh. But what they didn't realize is they had grabbed a piece of money that has the face of the king of Thailand on it, which is, It's like one of our cultural things. Like you don't do anything that would affect the monarch. Never anything to like deface the monarch. To which pretending that it's so money is not toilet paper in Thailand. Just in case you were curious about that. Best worst food experiences.
Oh gosh. Sam, we only have 27 minutes. Go ahead. He's the ultimate food guru, so go ahead.
Well, I don't want to be selfish with my time either. So I would say each spot has their own places. At the Far-Flung retreat, I did break those restaurants down that I thought were the best in every single place we've been to. Looking forward to Japan, and I don't have the PowerPoint with me. Should have brought that. I'm so sorry. Apologize on that. But yeah, I would say when we were in Brazil, the Brazilian steakhouse was fire, and we had a comp. Yeah, it was great. We had a competition too. I believe Jeremy was in on it. We were just seeing who could eat the most. Pastor Gary, I believe, was in on something like that. And I was sick for a week after that day.
So was that best and worst?
A little mixture because I was sick for a week. But we also had this fish at that place, if you remember. Yeah, that was unrefrigerated, and I think I took a little bite of that. So I think a mixture of all that. And plus, when you're on a trip, you don't really use the bathroom a lot, sometimes.
Cool. Sorry, Delilah.
Sometimes you need a little pep, though, if you're on a trip for a minute.
We're sorry, Delilah, when he comes home and he hasn't used the bathroom in a while.
I mean,
wow, that's...
sometimes you get stopped up sometimes when you're on mission trips.
Yeah, for sure, that does happen. Okay, food. Best meals, worst meals, difficult things.
I'll say best food for me has been Mozambique. And I'll say my example is that Zeke, who came this past year, vegan or vegetarian, by the time we left, was partaking in a meat platter at the restaurant that we went to. So always very good food in Mozambique.
He's not vegan, he's vegan.
I'd say my best food for me is Thailand, like overall.
Really?
I think for a long time, Thailand had best meal and most difficult meal for me. I think the guinea pig has now, for me, taken the cake on most difficult meal. I think after the session, Fine Carruthers, he ventured into some strange food things in Japan. So just you can get with him personally on that. Get some raw horse.
And a jellyfish, right?
Raw jellyfish. Yeah, and I mean, he's had a strange fever for like the last 14 days, and he's got a parasite of some kind. I don't know. Yes. So best, I guess best or worst, animal encounters, cool animal encounters while on the mission field.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead, set it up.
All right, so when we're staying on safari, we stay in the park overnight in these little bungalows, and me and him are sharing a bungalow. And they tell us like there's baboons everywhere. Like be careful, like they're just going through
your
the trash.
face off.
And you don't. Baboon sounds cute. You don't want to mess with a baboon. I'm sure Duncan's had some experiences with baboons. They're vicious. So they're warning us over and over. So I go to get some food at the little store, and I come back, and you walk in the door, and there's my bed, and then further away is his bed. And I open the door, and Jonathan's asleep. And so I'm just being stupid. I didn't video it because I didn't think he would react, but I decided to come in acting like a baboon. And Jonathan lost his mind. He was so scared, like jumps up in the bed, wide-eyed. And then if he thought it was a baboon, I don't know what he was gonna do. He jumps onto my bed closer to the baboon. Like he turned into a baboon.
Like you gotta attack quick.
Like he matched my energy perfectly.
You need all the advantage you can get. And then he tries it again, tries to record it, and then plays baboon sounds. And then I open my eyes and I see this little red flashing light, and I was like, this man's trying to record me.
Can you give us a little bit of the baboon sound? Like
that's it.
Yeah. Other interesting animal encounters from the trips?
Interesting.
Yep. The Amazon trip, the Pink River dolphins.
Those were weird.
I have a story with those. I don't have to share
Is it appropriate?
Why does Far-Flung always have to ask one of the,
I
is it
promise
appropriate story?
none of my stories are inappropriate. I don't. I mean, we just, it was the pink dolphins, and you could pay to go and get in the water with them. And so I got in the water, and I'm like, this is going to be great. And then the trainer who was there, the guy that was in charge of the pink dolphins, he said, whatever you do, he looked at me, he said, whatever you do, I don't know if it's because I'm a bigger guy, but he said, don't move and don't touch the dolphin. And so I looked at him, I said, why am I in here? And he was like, you're in here to experience the pink dolphins. And I said, well, if you don't want me to move. And then all of a sudden I felt something cross my leg. And it was the pink dolphin, came right up and grabbed a fish out of his hand. And I was like, what am I doing here? This thing's about to kill me. So
We're in the floaty.
Yeah.
It's like way too small.
I know, but why would he tell me that? I don't know. Did he tell you that?
Oh, wait, were you gonna say something? Yeah, I think like we didn't know we encountered interesting animals when we were swimming in the Amazon. It's like, and it's like, somebody asked me, it's like, yeah, weren't you swimming with piranhas? I was like, yes, I was. Like anacondas, crocodiles, all that stuff.
When we went and scouted, when we went and scouted the Amazon, on the way into the Amazon, like we're in the Amazon, but we're gonna go 500 miles in. And we stop at this like little dock where you can pet a caiman, like hold a caiman, or a sloth, and then we have an anaconda. I was like, awesome. It was just me. I don't know where Gary was, but it was just me there for some reason. And so we go on this dock. They open this big giant cooler where the anaconda is, and they're like, oh, it's gone. And I was like, and meanwhile, like they just the kids go out in the woods and get these things and they bring them back in, and now it's like an attraction. So they're like, where's the anaconda? Looking all over the dock. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, can you come back in a week? We'll have a new one. So I was like, okay, we'll come back in a week. So the whole trip, Gary's going, we're gonna go see them anacondas. I was like, we can go back if you want to. Oh yeah, we got to see them anacondas. I was like, man, he's really into this. So we go back, and they had a new one, 9 foot long, and they only had it for one day. And it had crawled up into a tree, ate a bird's nest, and then they get a little lethargic after they eat. And a 12-year-old boy climbed up the tree, got the anaconda, got it there, and was ready to put it around our necks. So I do it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this massive, smelly anaconda. It wasn't full grown yet, but it's still 9 foot anaconda. And so then it's like Gary's turn, and Gary goes, I don't think I'm gonna do it. I said, what? We're here. We're only here because he goes, I'm terrified of snakes. I said, why did you bug me about this for a week? I think he just wanted to face his fears. He said, I just don't want to do it. I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. So I was like, okay, this is great. So I get this thing on his neck, and he's like, all right, get a picture of it. Get a picture of it. Go ahead now. And it's like wrapping around. He goes, oh, I'm going to do something. Which I don't know if he means like he could turn into the Hulk. He's like, I'm going to do something. You better get it. I'm going to do something. And so, right. So anyway, so I've got the picture instantly, but I'm just now videoing. I'm like, hold on, I'm trying to get my camera to work. I'm just stretching it. And it's wrapping around. He goes, Kyle, I'm going to do something. And he was terrified. And it was amazing.
The elephant encounter in Thailand is pretty amazing. It's pretty remarkable. If you go to Mozambique and you have a chance to go on the safari, don't get in the vehicle with Kyle or with Celia. They've been on too many safaris and things are no longer impressive. So they're gonna nap until something exciting. So they're like stirring, is it a kill? Did a lion kill something? I'm going back to sleep, So you want to get on there with the rookies, with the first year people. They're excited about everything. The safari is unbelievable. The tiger encounter is pretty cool in Thailand. It's really fun. It also feels like the place you would be most likely to be attacked by an animal. When we went the very first time, I asked him, has anyone ever been killed by one of these tigers? And he says, no one's been killed. Many attacks, but no one's been killed. And so then that's all Kyle needed to hear, and we were in. So that's a lot of fun. And recently in Zambia, the new trip that'll be offered this coming year, there's a lion encounter, which was so amazing. And you also can take and walk with the cheetahs, which was really, really cool. They purr really loud. which is a little unsettling for an animal that big to purr. But I guess if they're not purring, that's scarier. Okay, so another question for you guys. Your life is richer. Your life is richer because of the cross-cultural experience. In what ways? Right. What are the ways that your life here is richer because of your ability to encounter so many different cultures?
Seeing Jesus outside of American Jesus is the greatest gift. Being able to, and I'm not saying that Jesus is to everybody in a different way and he's contradictory toward things. I'm saying that so much culture is built into who we think Jesus is that it's not scriptural. And then when we get to another place and we see how they view things and how they interact in all the ways that Jesus has been there for them, is very enriching. And you come back and you just question everything. It's good to question things. Shake things, poke at it, look at it from every direction, and then be like, okay, this is where I end up. And so it is definitely one of the most enriching things, be able to see how people worship and how they view God and how they trust God in different ways, is one of the biggest. There's probably a million answers, but that's the one
I think sometimes there's like and I grew up this way, right? Like growing up Pentecostal, so, sometimes we feel like there's just like charging up that has to happen before we do something spiritual. And one of my favorite things about, when we travel with Far-Flung is, and Kyle mentioned this earlier, is the fact that we just kind of go. We get on a plane. We know we're going to Africa. We know we're going to Ecuador. We know we're going to these countries. But sometimes, like, this was in Ecuador. We went to the hot springs, right? It's like we're like vacationing basically, for a day, just kind of so people can see the country while they're there. And I'll tell you right now, like the last thing on my mind was like, this is a spiritual moment. This, like for me, I was like, this is amazing. I'm in 105? Maybe hotter. Maybe even hotter than that. It's like the hottest pool. And people are asking us like, yeah, where are you guys from? And we start telling stories and all these things. And I'll be honest, the last thing I was thinking about was that we were gonna end up having a line of people in the hottest water possible, wanting us to pray for them. And even to the point where we thought, is this about to be a baptism? And so like, I think kind of going back to this preconceived idea that sometimes we have, is just like, I'm not coming here to like, I'm being an example of Christ. I'm preaching the gospel, but that's it, And sometimes I think it has helped me, Ryan, to really get this understanding that my main goal when I go to a different country is to preach the gospel, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing it does when you go to another culture, it helps to eradicate the stereotypes that we have towards people. And we're small-minded if we don't recognize we have ingrained in us some preconceived notions towards people who are a different color, a different accent, and that kind of stuff. And we think all Muslims are angry and militant, or we think certain things about people. And then when you can get into that environment and you sit down at someone's home in this other country, and they speak different, and they live differently, and they look differently, it helps to like chip away at what you once thought was like concrete. And what society or what American news cycles have told us about other countries and other cultures, and you suddenly are going to question things differently because of the cultural exposure that you've had. Another question for you guys while we just have a couple minutes. In the hard times on the field, when things have been really difficult on the field, what are some things that help like preserve you, or things that helped keep you centered, to keep you maybe like balanced, whether it's family back home, or what are some things you've done when things are difficult in the field?
Pedialyte and prayer. Pedialyte physically for sure. Prayer for sure. I found it really helpful to find somebody that's a mentor, a pastor, somebody that you're really close with back home. Make sure that they know that you're going. Make sure that they're praying for you, whether it's like a team back home at church that's praying for you. I've seen people like assign different people in their lives different days, so you know when somebody different is praying for you each day. But just always kind of reconnecting with them if you're having a hard time. And then also our missionaries, I think, are great resources. You know, they've been through the hard times there, and whatever it is you're experiencing, I promise they have experienced. So even talking to them about whatever you're going through, and also the Pedialyte.
Yeah, I would say as far as on a trip, just the nightly devotions that we have together are some of the most powerful moments. Even in my life this summer in Mozambique, one of our nightly devotions was just a staple for my life. And they're all like that. We get together, it's late, we're tired, and then God shows up. On every Far-Flung trip I've been on in those nightly meetings together. And also just the people where you are. I mean, when you get in a room and you start to pray with people from different countries and you see their hunger for the Lord and their heart for God, it keeps you motivated. Because, you know, here we have a lot of stuff, you know, and when you go there, you see like they don't have as much as we do, but they're just as rich as we could ever be. Because of their heart for God and the way they love their family. And they may not have much physically, but there's so much they have spiritually. And so that right there on the field keeps you really motivated. Those things for me.
I think one thing too, you can't pack everything that you're gonna need, even like emotionally, spiritually. You're gonna have to trust that, because we've been in some dicey moments, and you're just gonna have to trust that it'll be there when you need it. Like when you need courage, when you need that faith, when you need those things, the portion will be there when you need it. And you just kind of got to trust that, because otherwise, why are you walking around with this swollen up faith when you're just like, you know, just handing out plates of food? You don't need that.
I want to say something to that, Brian, real quick. So, you know, as I said earlier, my wife and I spent 5 weeks in Ecuador. And it's one thing when you go on a 1 week trip or week and a half trip and you're with a bunch of people like what's your name? Sam. So you're with, you know, Sam's there and you're all hanging out. Yeah, it's been a long day. Anyway, but you know, you're all together and you're devoting and worshiping and all these things, and that's so encouraging. I'll tell you the strangest feeling that I've ever felt, and Renee, you might have felt this, is when they leave. Right? It's like, you're like, yeah, man, we just did this thing for Jesus. And then now it's like, they just left to the airport, they got on the plane, they left, and now you're like, what now? And it's like, and then you try to like find within yourself, I'm here to preach the gospel and I'm here to do this and people are gonna be changed and fire and all these things are gonna happen and explosions. And then you go back home and it's like, there's no kids running around, right? Like there's no devotions at night with 20 people or 15 people, and there's no encouraging prayer for each other, any of that. And so I would say sometimes one of the things that encouraged Amanda and I was, and we struggled, I think, for a little while. We were sick of 3 of 5 weeks that we were there, right? We got really desperate and we're like, we want some bread. So we went out to a local bakery. Don't ever go to a local bakery, unless you know, there's one spot that we go to in Ecuador that's okay, but we went to a different one because we didn't feel like going all the way down. We ate some bread and we got sick for 2 weeks, and then after that we got COVID. But aside from that, it was like there's a point where I think I had to realize that all these like things that I had romanticized in my mind, that I was coming here and things were gonna blow up and this and this and this and that, and like life change, I'm gonna come back and all this like, you know, 10 pages worth of stories. There was a moment where the Holy Spirit spoke to me. There was a little kid that was hanging out with us, Josue. I don't know if you know him or not, but Josue was hanging out with us the whole week. And at one point, the Holy Spirit said, it's like, I know you're struggling, but it's like, think about what this is meaning for him. And I'm not saying this to glorify ourselves, because honestly, I don't know that, like, I sat him down and was like, I'm gonna teach you these things about the word, right? But it's like, this kid lives in probably one of the worst areas of Ecuador, right? 85% of all drugs come through Ayacucho. If that gives you any perspective. And it's like, and that's when the Lord spoke to me. He said, like, this is it. Like, this is the mission. This is it. Like, you being an example, because you never know. And it seems so small, right? That the whole reason why my son, my wife, and I went to Ecuador was so that this kid could be blessed in some way. It seems so small. And it's hard to tell the story because I don't know, like, what Josue's life is in the future, right? But I think it's sometimes embracing the fact that all you're doing is living life in a different country with a different culture, right? And then just saying, Lord, I trust you. And I'll tell you, things are difficult, right? Like, I went to, you go to Lowe's here. You need what, 30 planks of wood, right? Gabe, you're a contractor. 30, 40 minutes, and you might walk out with 30 planks of wood. Not even that, maybe 10 minutes, right? I needed like 40 planks of wood, and I go to the wood store, and 5 hours later, I'm walking out with my wood. Not even walking out with the wood. I had to wait till the next day so that they could deliver it because they had to prep the wood. All this to say is, like, sometimes we just need to embrace, like Renee was saying, trust the Lord, pray, and just realize that the Lord works in the big and also in the small.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, I think that we're gonna go ahead and call it as far as our Q&A and stuff like that. We're hanging out for the for the rest of the day. So when we have breaks, if you have other questions, I know there's some more questions that kind of came in.